Welcome to the China Influencer Marketing Podcast. Each week, we speak with top influencers, marketers, and brands who share their experiences, strategies, and tactics for influencer marketing in China. Here's your host, Lauren Hallanan.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to episode 1 of the Influencer Marketing Podcast. I'm extremely excited about launching this podcast. And first and foremost, I want to thank you for downloading it and checking it out. Today's guest is Antoine Bunel. He is the #1 foreign food influencer in China. And in 2016, he made it onto Top Cloud's list of the top 100 influencers on Chinese social media. This interview is such a goldmine, I couldn't wait to share it with you. In this interview, we talk about the direction of the food industry in China, why TV is still relevant, his experiences live streaming for JD.com and Taobao, his advice for brands when working with influencers, and why he thinks influencers will eventually eliminate the need for marketing and ad agencies. Antoine's passion and enthusiasm for what he does is so apparent in this interview and is obviously one of the main reasons why he has become so successful. Stick around at the end of the episode to hear my key takeaways. And to find the show notes and more episodes of this podcast, you can visit www.chinainfluencermarketing.com. So, without further ado, here is my interview with Antoine Bunel. Hi, Antoine. Welcome to the China Influencer Marketing Podcast. Thank you for joining us.
It's a pleasure, Lauren.
So I'm really excited because I've kind of known you for a while, but I haven't actually had an opportunity to really talk to you and hear about your story and your experiences. So I'm really excited to get to talk to you today and learn a bit more.
Fantastic. Let's go for it.
So I want to start off because I know that you used to be in the music business. And so I'm really curious to see or to hear how you went from being in the music business to now being a top online influencer in China, and not in the music business, but in the culinary, like food industry. Like, how did you make such a huge switch, and how did you become such a famous influencer in China?
Well, it's a great question. It's a long story, but I'm not a typical guy in the sense that I've studied IT. I moved to London and I taught myself music production actually, and I worked in music production for a couple of years. My profile is unusual, but I am a mixture of creative and tech. I've always loved creative technology, so I used to play with music software. At the same time, I was experimenting with Photoshop and video editing. I've done graphic design and video editing, multimedia for many years. But at the same time, I've always loved cooking, and cooking was a hobby when I was in London for 10 years. So what I've done when I came to China is I've put my 10 plus years experience in multimedia plus my 20 plus years experience in cooking together. And I started putting photos on Weibo, photos of my food, interacting with people in Chinese about cooking and all that. And I sort of combined multimedia online stuff with my passion for food.
Okay. So you said you started putting photos on Weibo. Was that just kind of a side thing, or did you start doing that with an intent to become an influencer?
I think nobody should start with the intent of becoming an influencer. I think first and foremost, you do what you do because it's a passion. And I started cooking with my mom when I was around 5 years old. And when I moved to London at the age of 21, I was cooking every day and loving it, but I never had a thought about making my job. But when I came to China, what happened is that I couldn't sort of find the food that I wanted from restaurants. A, because there weren't many, and B, because they were expensive. So I just cooked more and more. And then at the time, I actually got my first job in China working for an agency doing Weibo marketing, and that sort of got me into thinking, okay, I'm in China now. I'm not going to play with Facebook. I'm going to play with local platforms. So I got on Weibo, and learning from this agency, I sort of got some tricks on how to develop my Weibo, how to interact with other accounts, and things grew naturally from there. I saw that my fans were growing, that people were asking me questions, and things kind of rolled on from there.
Yeah, I mean, really the best way to learn about a platform is to get on it and actually start using it. So I'm sure that as you started using Weibo for your own purposes, you also became a better marketer for the company because you were understanding the platform better.
It was actually working exactly together, because that was 2012, I should say. I moved to China in 2012, and at the time Weibo was super hot. I mean, everybody was on Weibo, and for me, learning how it worked with the agency, and on the other side, just playing with it, putting my food photos on there with my beginner Chinese at the time. That was kind of cool, and I loved seeing the interest. I spoke about the lack of Western food in China, and that's the key thing I think that's allowed me to become a KOL, because there was a gap, there was a need, there was a gap to fill in terms of food content made by Westerners in Chinese for the Chinese. So that's how I jumped in, really, by filling this gap.
Okay. And what do you think was like the turning point, or what was, when you said you were growing steadily, but did it ever, did you have one video or one kind of post or something that really made it take off?
It's a great question, Lauren, because it's not everybody who will post content that will become a KOL. For me, my story was complex, but of course, some things helped. I think that what helped a lot is I got spotted actually on Weibo by some TV stations. I think they were searching for foreigners, and they came across my profile. They messaged me in private, and they went, "Hey, we can see you can cook, you can speak Chinese, it seemed to be fun and all that." So they invited me on a TV show. I think the first one was with my wife. We were doing this sort of mixed couple thing. And the second show I did was I cooked on TV. That was like 2012, 13. I made some flambéed bananas on TV. I don't even remember the platform, the show that was, but I sort of saw the interest, and from being on TV and posting these photos of me on TV, I just attracted a lot of fans, and other accounts started reposting my content and all that, and it just grew naturally, really doing small things and then starting getting more of them and doing bigger things and doing more bigger things. It just went on and up and up.
Okay, so do you think that being on the TV shows and then being able to post about being on a TV show on your Weibo account kind of gave your account more authority, so then people felt like they could share it more and spread it more because they saw you as an expert all of a sudden?
Expert, I'm not sure, but I've always been a bit of a crazy guy. I've always loved sharing and loved experimenting and pushing the boundaries a little bit. When I was in London, I did VJing, for example. I worked on this stuff for about a couple of years. I did a show in Glastonbury, which is the biggest outdoors music festival in the UK. So I'm a bit of how to say, I like to be there, to perform. I like to be out there and do stuff. So for me, doing TV was a great way to talk about French food, to talk about French culture, to talk about romance as well, and talk about health. All these topics that I'm actually passionate about. I think to attract audiences, it's not just about showing a face or something. It's about sharing your story. And I do have stories. I have so many stories that I think that is sort of adds to my cooking skills. It's a profile. I'm not a chef. I'm somebody who loves life. I'm somebody who loves cooking and loves music and photography and a lot of things. And I try and encourage people to enjoy life. That's the purpose of my Weibo, really.
Gotcha. Okay. Are you still doing TV shows these days, or have you moved on to kind of other platforms?
I'm absolutely still doing TV shows. I think in China, where you have such an enormous variety of platforms, it's obviously impossible to do everything. But for me, one very strong characteristic about me is that I have a split IP. My Weibo is actually not it's not a huge account. Even though I am in the top 100 of the KOL list in China, according to the 2016 listing made by Top Cloud. My Weibo is not the strongest account. My IP is split because I do a lot of stuff. I'm on various TV shows. I'm on various online shows, and I'm talking about different kinds of sizes. From small shows on BTV, being interviewed about my romantic love story, to huge shows with top celebrities. So I'm a little bit everywhere, and this is a good thing and a bad thing. Because my Weibo is not as strong as it could be, but good thing because you can do my name and now, and you will get a ton of results on a ton of different platforms and shows.
Okay, so if you're on all these different shows, how are you choosing what to be on, or are you just saying yes to everything?
I definitely cannot say yes to everything because I get a lot of requests, both from shows, from friends, from WeChat accounts, or all kinds of people and platforms. So I try and do things that match my style, that match my ambition to share good stuff. So I say no sometimes to some of the shows if it doesn't really suit my image. Yeah.
Okay.
I don't say no much, but sometimes.
Okay, well, feel lucky to have you with such a busy schedule. So could you talk a bit about your fans, your followers? Who are they? Like, what kind of age demographic? Are they more male or female? What do you know about them?
My followers, I would say they are 20 to 35, mostly female, because, well, for a guy who can cook, that's an obvious appeal for Chinese girls. But my aim is to talk to Chinese guys because I want to encourage Chinese guys to use food as a romantic way to get into the ladies' hearts. There's more guys than girls in China, so I read these articles about the challenge for guys to find love, and as we know in China, sometimes people don't really know how to express their feelings or don't know how to do to find love. And I'm always saying, hey, the Chinese people love food. If you can cook, you will find someone, you will attract someone, and someone good. So I think food for me is a great vehicle for romance, and I want to encourage my fans to do that. So it's mostly young people, but also young mothers, young parents. Myself, I am a young parent as well. My kid is 4 years old, mixed blood boy. And it's a topic that I absolutely love as well, education and kids. So I have a different range of fans from 20-year-olds, university students who watch 世界纪念 show, for example, and who may not have their own kitchen, but who might like food. And it goes all the way to young or less young mummies or daddies who enjoy cooking for their kids.
Okay. And what types of cooking content do they like best? Do they still prefer like Western food? Are they into like what food do you see them particularly into?
So I mentioned the topic of the Chinese market for Western food, and I think it's a huge market, and it's not completely mature yet. I think the Chinese, the Western food market in China has got an amazing and enormous potential of growth in the next few years. And I'm not just talking about media content. I'm also talking about e-commerce, all kinds of business. So it's a huge market because there's not too many restaurants yet. There's not too many Western brands there, but it's growing. So I think that the Chinese audience wants to see Western food for different reasons. It's a trend. right? The Chinese consumer has more buying power, and they want to consume Western fashion. Like we have Gucci and Louis Vuitton and Nike, Adidas, all that. But food is also a fashion, right? So people want to discover new foods, and French foods, well, French food and Chinese food are the two most popular cuisine in the world. So the Chinese consume food for trend. They also consume Western food for health, because we all know about the food issues in China with the gutter oil and all kinds of stuff. So the Chinese sometimes have a lack of trust for their own cooking, for their own restaurants. So they see the Western food, especially Western restaurants in China, as more hygienic, cleaner, more healthy. And this is also one big area for me, because I'm pushing for healthy Western food. I'm absolutely passionate, and I believe in good, healthy food, good homemade food. I think that we should avoid, plasticky, crappy junk food, and we should love ourselves and give ourselves a good body, a good mind, a good heart, and that definitely comes from food. So this is a huge topic for me. I think people in China are especially worried about their weight, right? I don't know about you, Lauren, but a lot of girls, they're always thinking, I should lose some weight, la la la. Personally, I don't always agree that skinny is best, and actually I don't agree, because some girls have a different kind of body shape, and they can be beautiful in their way. It's not every guy who likes skinny girls. I don't. But in terms of being healthy, doing your own cooking is the best way, because then you can control what you put, you can decide what you put, and you can tailor your food according to your body needs. And that's a big topic for me. And I think that Western food has a huge amount of value to give to China, because we all know that sometimes Chinese food can be a bit oily, can be just a bit starchy, heavy, lots of oil and soy sauce and all that. And French people, we definitely start a meal with a salad, with a healthy raw food, and it's great for your health. It's vitamins, it's not full of calories, so it's very good stuff. So these different angles of health, of trend, and romance help me cover a range of contents and a range of audience. And I cover all these contents with a video, of course, with a photo and text and all that. I try and play on all these angles.
Yeah, I think you're definitely right there when you're saying that you're hitting on a lot of super hot topics in China, from health to food safety to weight to wanting to cook good food. I mean, these are all just always trending topics in China. So I can see why your content is very popular. I really want to talk about, I know you've been doing a lot of TV stuff, but I also know that over the past, I guess, year or so, you've been doing a lot of live streaming. And I would love to hear more about that, because I used to do live streaming, but not really in the same way that you do live streaming. From what I know, that you work with a lot of brands and companies to do more like e-commerce style live streaming, and I would just love to hear a bit about your experience with that.
Yes, live streaming is a huge thing in China. It's been a huge thing for over a couple of years really. And how to say, I mean, the Chinese internet landscape is so enormous and so fragmented. The Westerners sometimes really are very far from understanding anything about China. It's crazy here. There are hundreds, if not thousands, of live streaming platforms. And for me, I jumped in because I've always been a tech guy. I studied IT. I've done global media marketing for over 10 years. So I've always been very curious about online technology. And the longer I've been in China, the more I've realized, hey, hang on a second, the Chinese have got it better than the West. So I've definitely jumped in live streaming. And I installed a few different platforms. I've been playing with a few different formats. And I think it's been great for me to interact with the fans. I think that's one of the best thing in live streaming is that people ask you questions and you can jump in. And It can help you with sort of content when if you don't know what to say. But mostly, it's a great way to have a spontaneous conversation with a lot of people at the same time. Now, to reply to your question about the brands, of course, it's been fantastic for brands because it's allowed brands to sort of gain visibility in different ways. The way I've done live streaming with brands is sort of using their products to do cooking shows. So I'm doing a lot of these because there's a lot of brands and then there's a lot of platforms. So they all call me to say, hey, Antoine, we've got this amazing pressure cooker. Would you like to use it and do a show with us, show the Chinese how to cook healthy food with a pressure cooker? And then I go, no problem. I got the recipes. And sometimes we do it on my live streams, on my account. Sometimes we do it on their accounts. I should say something about e-commerce because live streaming has definitely gained traction with e-commerce. We've seen Alibaba and Jingdong both get on the live streaming bandwagon. So Tmall does live streaming, and I've done a lot of products with them. Next week, I'm in Shanghai to do a live stream on Jingdong for a German pressure cooker brand, actually. So this is a great way for brands to sort of use live streaming to generate direct sales, which is sort of the best level in marketing when you know you can measure your KPIs in terms of how much you spend on your project and how many sales you get out of that.
Yeah. So if you're doing these shows with, with JD and with Tmall, and there's actual links to the products in your live stream, do you feel like pressure to encourage people to buy, or do you just act like it's a normal cooking show and maybe you mentioned that the product's available for sale? How does that work, and what kind of requests does the brand have as far as what you're saying about the product?
Brands always have a lot of requests. We can come back to that in a second. Yeah. But I'll just tell you very frankly, I have no issue selling a product because it's done on Tianmao, on Tmall, on Jingdong. These are buying platforms. People go on these platforms to buy stuff. So I have absolutely no shame in pushing a product as long as I believe in it. And so far, I have done zero project where I don't believe in the product. I'm lucky enough to work with good companies with good products. So when I do a show for a pressure cooker, a non-stick pan, or for an oil, a company doing oil or whatever, I'm perfectly happy to recommend the product because I know it's good, and I know that people are are watching this show to actually learn how to use this product or learn what to do with it. So to decide to buy it or not. So it's my role as a passionate chef, as a passionate home cook, to sort of share my opinion about it. But I wouldn't lie, of course, about a product. I think that's one thing that KOLs have to be careful with, is that keep it real. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I know that's probably more common both in China and the Western world, is people that are hungry for money, and so they support products that they actually don't really use or they don't really know much about, and that I think just leads to trouble in the long term.
Yeah. I mean, again, it's a question of image, and of course, we work in a business, we want to earn money, but everybody draws their own line. I know I have my own lines. I know I have perhaps I will have situations in the future where brands that I don't really like will contact me and offer me work, and I'm not sure if I will do it or not. But so far, it's been great. I love recommending stuff. Yeah.
I have a question about just live streaming for brands, for e-commerce in general. If there's a brand that's considering doing this, do you have any recommendations for them as far as it could be length of the show, the format, the time of day, how to choose a KOL, just any recommendations if a brand is wanting to use live streaming to sell their products, just from your experience?
I have a lot of recommendations, Lauren, because I see a lot of, I've done hundreds of projects, and I see sometimes some are better than others, some are worse than others. So in terms of length, an hour and a half. people will come and go. It's not everybody who will stay for the whole show. There's no point doing a 3 hours live stream. It's too long. People will get bored. People have a short attention span. So I think an hour to an hour and a half is good. In the evening tends to work a little bit better because people are off from work. They're more available than lunchtime or afternoon streams, even though we can still get people. But my biggest piece of advice is this. Brands have to be careful to understand that a KOL is not an actor. A KOL is not a person to read commercial lines, right? I say this slowly because I hope people who listen will really just pay attention to that. A KOL is a person in their own right with their own audience. They got there because the audience sort of likes to hear this person's voice, this person's style. And when brands go there and then ask KOLs to read these very commercial heavy lines, it sort of perverts the whole thing, and it's it's putting a costume on. It's really not sincere. So brands have to work with the KOL. My advice is that involve the KOL with the agency, alongside the agency. Let the KOL come up with suggestions. After all, they should know the product. I'm into cooking, right? And brands approaching me with their pressure cooker, for example. I'm saying that because I have the project like that next week. They know the cost of their pressure cooker. They know the logistics. They know a lot of parameters about this product. But I'm the one who will know the food to make with it. I'm the one who will know the questions the audience will ask me about it. So let me in on the script. Let me in with the agency to talk about how we're going to do this live show. That's really a key, The KOL is not an actor here to read your lines. The KOL has their fans, has their style. Use them, bring them in, let them come up with some creative ideas, and give the KOL the support, the technical know-how, the studio setup, obviously, and everything, so that they can do their best. I think it's key.
Yeah, it's funny because I wrote an article. It hasn't come out yet, but I wrote an article last week pretty much saying exactly what you were just saying, that when you're paying to work with a KOL, a lot of brands just think, oh, they're paying for this distribution channel to get their message out. But really, when you're working with a KOL, you should also treat them like a creative consultant. And more brands need to be asking KOLs for their opinions and their advice and their creative input, because the KOL got to where they are because they're good at creating content for their audience. So you should be using that and not just telling them what to do and then trying to distribute on their channel.
Yes, absolutely. The agency and the client should work like an A&R, pushing the KOL as a talent and giving them their space, obviously with some requirements, but it's not an ad. Some brands just think we can just mention the brand name every 5 seconds, and I don't know, it's a live stream is not exactly an ad. It's a product placement. It's like an infomercial as well, like they used to be on TV, but it's more interactive. It's more fun than those. So when I do these shows, an hour and a half, I will, of course, endeavor to push the brand and to mention the product advantages and everything. But at the end of the day, it's also a cooking show. It's also got to be fun. It's got to be enthusiastic. It's got to have some elements of culture and everything. It's not just brand. Especially, when they have these big taglines that sounds so commercial. It's awful. It's not really made for live stream. So I think brands have got to slightly soften their rules a little bit and just concentrate with the KOL on making a good show, as good as possible, so that people want to watch all of it and want to forward it or tell their friends, hey, check that show out. That was a really good show.
Yeah, because if the content is good enough, then they will want to buy the product without you even asking them to buy the product. They'll just do it naturally. So, sometimes if you push someone too much, then they're not going to buy it just because they feel like they start to lose trust or feel like they're being forced into buying something. So I completely agree. I want to talk, since we're kind of talking about working with brands, I want to talk just more in general about working with brands, not necessarily live streaming but with brands in general. I know that you work with brands all the time. And so I was wondering if you could share maybe some of either a very positive experience or a very negative experience, and maybe of working with a brand, and kind of share some advice for brands looking to work with a KOL. I mean, you were kind of just giving some, but I didn't know if you had any more, not just for live streaming, but just for creating content and working with KOLs in general.
Yeah, I have a lot of stories. I've worked with dozens of brands. I think I never got a single bad project. I had projects that were, how to say, slightly not disappointing, but I thought if they brought me in earlier, if they let me participate earlier in the discussion about the concept and everything, it could have been a little bit better. I come from a global media marketing background. I've done online advertising campaigns for huge global companies, so I know a thing or two about integrated marketing. And sometimes what happens is that these projects are a collaboration between the client on one side, the creative agency on the other side. The creative agency might hire some third-party production companies to actually produce the show, and then there's the KOL. So there's a lot of trickling down of information and stuff. And sometimes the agencies at the creative director level, of course, they will have some great thoughts and all that, but it's not always that things will pass down very well. And I've done shows where they didn't really consider the integrated marketing. I mean, let's face it, we have so many platforms. If you're gonna put the effort to put on a show, a live streaming, well, why don't you get some nice photos out of it? Why don't you get some multiple format materials that can end up on Weibo, on WeChat accounts, on your Twitter or whatever it is? If you're going to do something, then just try and maximize the outputs out of it. That's called integrated marketing. You just link your multiple campaigns into each other, and you feed your Instagram into your Facebook or everything. So I see companies not doing that very well, and that's disappointing. On the upper hand, on the positive sides, I think one of the best shows I've done was for Alibaba this year. In February, Alibaba invited me to Frankfurt in Germany to host a 2-day shooting, and that was for the world's biggest food products exhibition. We're talking about kitchen equipment, glasses, tableware, all kinds of products. It's a huge thing. There's about 2,000 brands there. And then Alibaba invited me to work with about 10 brands to do 1 day full-on live show, 1 day full-on video recording. That was incredible. I was in Germany. I'm a French guy, and I was streaming live in Chinese to Chinese audiences on Taobao. And I was interacting with German chefs, with Spanish chefs in these 4 languages. I speak Chinese and French and English. I speak a little bit of German, a little bit of Spanish, and I loved it. This was the best project of my life. I look at the photos again and I think, wow, these were incredible 2 days.
Yeah, I mean, that sounds like, just listening to you, that sounds like really interesting content. I mean, I can't imagine, Chinese audiences. I think it's a really unique view for them to be able to see a French chef attending this conference and speaking Chinese to them. I mean, it just sounds like it must have been an interesting experience for you, but I think also really great content for the audience.
It's great because it was streamed on Tmall, so this was directly linked to sales, and for me an amazing personal experience, because I really see myself as well, actually, if you look at this ranking by Top Clouds, I am the #1 KOL in China as a foreigner for F&B. So I see myself as an ambassador of food and culture in China. And again, to define and to clarify my status, my identity, I am not a chef. I'm a passionate cook. I am a multimedia person. I'm an entertainer, and I love to be in this space between chefs and the media and the audience. I'm good at sort of putting these things together. Yeah.
Right. And yeah, I think I'm sure that actually makes your audience feel even closer to you because you aren't necessarily a professional chef. So maybe they feel like if he can do it, then I can do it too.
Absolutely. You completely nailed it. And I got the realization about that when I think 3 or 4 years ago, I watched, I think it was an Australian chef was doing something on the Chinese Weibo with a translator. And the guy had like a setup with 4 or 5 pans to do a dish. And I thought, Jesus, he's never seen a Chinese kitchen. They have 2 hobs. They have 2 fires. How can they ever do this kind of stuff? It's just not realistic. And plus, to be honest with you, I'm actually coming from the south of France. We have a more down-to-earth cooking style. I'm not into this crazy Fenzeliali. I'm looking for my English now. Into this chemical cooking, molecular cooking. Mm-hmm. I'm not into that. It's just too drumbeat, too pretentious and all that. I'm much more down to earth. I'm much more DDT, and I think people can appreciate that I make stuff that people can make. Of course, I make the efforts to make it beautiful and all that, but I make food that most people can make, and then my audience is bigger. And actually, to come back to brands, this is a conversation I had with one of my long clients. I have a long working relationship with President. This is President is a butter product, and this is Lactalis Group, which is the biggest dairy group in the world. I've worked with them for a year, and I met the marketing director for Europe, French guy. He came to my restaurant, and I had a conversation with him, and I told him, if you want to bring your butter to China, if you are only going to do high-end pastry, then your audience is going to be very small. Of course, you're going to do amazing cakes and all that. People go, wow, this is beautiful. But they will never buy your butter to make it. I told him, let me create some content like that. Let me use French butter to make the Chinese dishes like 西红柿炒鸡蛋, the type of egg and tomato dish that all Chinese families will do. And if you can bring butter to do this kind of cooking, then your audience is incredible. Your market is huge. So that's one thing to consider for brands as well, is where do you place your product? You have to adapt a little bit. China is China.
Yeah, exactly. They need to adapt and localize and do what's going to suit their audience and not what they've always done, right? They need to think creatively.
A little bit of fusion. I think fusion is a great, exciting thing because it talks to the Chinese, and I love playing with fusion. I sometimes put soy sauce or chili in my French food, and I think it makes it much better. So we are in a world where we share stuff and we learn from each other, and I think fusion is the future everywhere, really.
Yeah, definitely here in America, lots of fusion food everywhere. So
yep.
I completely agree.
Korean Mexican tacos, wonderful.
Love them. You wouldn't believe it. In my small town in upstate New York, we have a Korean Mexican restaurant.
Yep,
yeah.
Love it.
So popular here. So I want to talk about something. You don't need to go into specifics if it's not comfortable for you, but I'm curious to know how you decide what to charge a brand. I mean, I'm sure that when you started out, compared with now, it's much different. Because I think not just for brands, but for KOLs, it's very confusing what to charge in China. I mean, I think I've heard some people charging outrageous prices and some people undercharge, and there's not a lot of transparency. And so how over these past few years, how have you figured out what price to charge that brands will accept, but they also, I would just love to hear your thoughts on that.
It's a good question, and it's a really, really difficult one because obviously very few people will want to tell you exactly the numbers. It's a very sensitive question. I think that everybody has to be realistic with who they are, their level, and and their capacity to provide what is interesting for brands. My personal price has increased a lot, actually a hell of a lot, over the past 12 months. I'm lucky enough that my hard work has paid off. I've been on some huge shows with big celebrities, and that's made my value come up a lot. The ranking as well, being a top 100 KOL, has helped a hell of a lot as well. I have more power to tell brands, hey, you cannot get many people like me who do that. So, and I've got something special going on. So, hence the price. But when I started, or even if I go back maybe 12, 15 months ago, I would have accepted, perhaps 10 or 20% of what I charge now. So it depends. I mean, if you're a young guy and you have a daytime job and you do that as a hobby, and you charge, 2,000-3,000 kwai for a TV show or for a stream, and you can do that once a week, then great. It's a great complementary revenue. If obviously you are, you're doing that a lot, and your friends are getting more and more, and you're thinking of quitting your daytime job, then you should perhaps charge a bit more than that, so that you can think of a realistic good income that can support you. So it's about where you are really with your life and expectations. For me, I'm 37. I'm a dad. I'm a professional. I've been doing this professionally for over 2 years, nearly 3 years. So I'm at a level now where it's high end. It's getting more and more expensive. I think my personal price will keep rising very, very much during the next 12 months for sure.
Do you think when brands are, when you're discussing price with brands, maybe not so much for you now that you've been on these shows and on the ranking, but maybe before that, were they looking a lot at like follower numbers or, engagement, like those kinds of terms when they were trying to decide how much you were worth, or decide whether your results were good or not? Because I feel like for you, especially if you're on TV and you're on all these different platforms, it might be, I feel like your worth is going to be more than, maybe however many likes or comments or views, because you, like you said, you're spread out on all these different channels. So I'm just curious how you dealt with that.
Your analysis is spot on, actually, Lauren, because my situation is a little bit particular. I think brands definitely should be looking at not the follower numbers, but the interaction. Especially in Weibo, there's a lot of fakes. I've never bought fakes, but there are a lot. I think, coming from an agency and a client side background myself, I wouldn't spend marketing money if I didn't have the confidence it was going to be doing something, right? You have to have KPIs, and follower numbers is the wrong KPI. I think forwards and comments should be, and likes, of course, should be the first ones to look at. But for me, the situation is different because I'm not just a KOL. I'm not a pure KOL in the pure
like
meaning of the term.
Sense, right?
I am a personality. I am a talent, and my IP has value beyond my own Weibo. I'm actually trying to bring my Weibo to sort of match the value of my IP. My IP is because I am on a lot of these huge TV shows, on a lot of interviews on magazines, etc. So this is what constitutes my value. But brands definitely have to look closely at what KOLs are doing on their own shows, and the growth as well, because it shouldn't be just a one-off. I mean, ideally, working with brands, you want to set up an ongoing relationship with the KOLs. So you've got to watch where they come from, how were they performing 3 to 6 months ago. Are they on a good steady rise, or are they just sort of getting by and all that? So that's the kind of thinking brands should have.
I think you hit on a key problem. So many of the time, times it's a one-off thing. The brand hires a KOL to do something, and then they move on to like another KOL. They think maybe the more KOLs they work with, the better. But I think like you said, if they have an ongoing relationship, it can actually produce better results.
Yeah, but make the KOLs your fan. I'm into food, and when brands send me a product and I'm falling in love with it, well, here you go. I mean, it's more likely to make me wanna work with them and create ideas for them. I mean, think about it. Think about how much brands will spend to give to the creative agencies. And I don't want to kick agencies in the teeth, but sometimes, are they really delivering for the money? I'm not too sure. I mean, brands could go directly to KOLs and discuss together, and then stimulate the KOLs into creating the content, and that would cost them perhaps cheaper, cost them less. Make the KOL your fan. So I've had companies sending me products before, well ahead of the shows. And then I went, wow, that's actually a really good product. There was some air fryer. I don't know if you heard about these air fryers, some kind of frying machines without oil. And I was very, very dubious. But they sent me one 3 weeks before the show or something. And I tried it and I loved it. I thought it was incredible. And I created lots of stuff with it, which I then made on the show. And I told people, look, I didn't know this stuff was so good. And I'm so excited by it. I want to share with you. So that's a good thing, because now I use my air fryer all the time, and I'm really keen to do more stuff with them.
Yeah.
So make KOLs fans of your brand.
I'm sure your genuine reaction definitely came through in the content too.
Yeah, it has to be, because again, you fake it's not really working. I mean, I'm a very enthusiastic guy. I'm very passionate, and that's what I want to communicate. And I would really not like to have to fake that.
Yeah.
That'd be horrible.
Okay, so I want to switch a little bit and kind of finish up talking about some of your predictions for the future. I want to know, have you been trying any new types of content, or have you tried out any new social platforms lately?
This is a good question, and honestly, China is this place where everything is possible, and it's a good thing and it's a bad thing, because there's hundreds of live stream platforms that opened up, and there's actually dozens of them that have been shut down, either by the government or because they were not making revenue. So it's a bit difficult for us content creators to know what's going to happen. I don't have a clear vision on where the future is going. I'm not in the position to make predictions on that. What I'm saying is that at my level, I now have to build a team, to build a production team, because I want to be able to spread my content on different platforms, and I don't have time to do that by myself. I cook, I take my photos, I edit my own videos, I make my own music, I do a lot of stuff. I'm too busy to do everything. So I'm going to hire a team, and I think that's for KOLs who want to do well, they're going to have to do that, or do partnerships where they sort of help each other between KOLs on different platforms to grow each other, because it's just so spread, really.
Okay, so you feel like right now in China that it's important for KOLs not to just focus on, Weibo or WeChat, just one channel, but that they really need to be putting out their content and repurposing it and distributing it on as many social channels as possible, just because the Chinese market is so unpredictable that you don't want to kind of put all your eggs in one basket.
Yeah, it's way more complicated than the West. I mean, in the West, your social media is going to be your Facebook and Twitter, and then you have Instagram, and there's not too many more. There's Snapchat and all that, and you have tools like Hootsuite, right? You have Hootsuite. You can load your content and then distribute to all your channels, and that's the kind of thing that I'm actually hunting for in China, so that I can build my audiences on different platforms. I think that's my next step for me.
Yeah, it is definitely a bit tedious right now. I know personally that I want to put out a video on several different channels, and I have to take all this time to upload it and each channel has its own different lengths of text for the description and whether or not you can tag it and are there hashtags. There's just every channel has different requirements. It's like I could spend, all this time just uploading stuff. It's like, it's crazy how much effort, but I agree that right now in China, it's definitely worth it to distribute it across as many channels as possible. So I want to know for your industry, particularly for cooking, are there any more niche channels that you see a lot of people who want to cook or want to learn more about healthy eating that they use? Like is Weibo best, or is there some other smaller channel? Any recommendations for that?
Oh, there's all kinds of platforms because you have websites like Xiachu Farm, Asia China. So really, again, there's a lot of different platforms. Cooking is a huge topic. From desserts to healthy food to naughty food to snacks and even drinks as well. So it's a huge topic, and myself, I'm only scratching the surface with what I do. I do mostly French and then French-Chinese fusion. I do desserts. Desserts are a very popular topic. So it's again, it's a huge market in China with so much to do in terms of content on platforms, variety of content, and of course e-commerce. There's more brands to come to China.
And speaking of e-commerce, a question that I really want to ask you, you work with a lot of companies and promoting their products. Have you ever thought about coming out with your own product line? I know a lot of KOLs in China have been doing this lately. It's a hot topic. Are you considering it?
Absolutely, and it's something that came a long time ago. Actually, I was offered to put my face on some sort of high-end takeaway products, takeaway dishes, with my recipes and my face. But the conditions were not satisfactory, so I didn't go into that. Then I built my restaurant, and I was hoping to take my restaurant brand into product lines, but things haven't exactly worked out this way. It's really difficult business to open a restaurant. I've sort of pulled out of it. I still do a little bit, but not very much at all. So for me, products might come, but I think it's not an immediate thing. I need to create better IP. My aim now is to build my own TV show. My own. When I say TV, I probably mean online. I want to move from being KOL, from being sort of an actor in brands' content, to being a director and performer. So I want to create my own content, my own series, and I'm talking to various actors about that. I think that would make a big thing for my IP next year, in terms of being recognized as someone who can pull a product together, who can write a concept for a show, who can direct it, execute it, and perform in it as well. And I've got ideas how to monetize that, obviously. So that's the direction for me. The product is a product, but it will be an online show product, not a physical product yet.
Got it. Okay. So besides the TV show, any upcoming projects or plans for your future, or anything that you'd like to share with us that we should be looking out for?
There is something very big that's going to come out in about a month's time. I shot with Xie Jingfeng, who is a top level celebrity in China. He's got a cooking show called Feng Wei, and everybody knows Xie Jingfeng, and I've shot with him. That's going to give me a lot of credit. I know my WeChat is going to go crazy with people going, wow, I saw you with Xie Jingfeng, wow, amazing. And that's going to be a huge PR for me. So I'm excited about that in about a month and a half. And then I'm talking about some other shows as well. So yeah, lots of things in the pipeline. I'm a busy guy. I'm really excited by being in China. It's a country with so much fantastic mentality, fantastic possibilities. The West really has to learn from China.
Well, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. You shared a lot of insight, and I think there are so many takeaways. I've been writing notes the whole time. I can't wait to go back and look through everything. And thank you so much for joining.
My pleasure, and I should really have mentioned that at the beginning. If people are interested, they can find me on Weibo and now the Now Chufang. They can find me on LinkedIn for the Westerners, Antoine Bunel, Bunel. I use LinkedIn a lot for business development actually, because a lot of brand managers, brand directors, agencies are there. So I'm online.
Great.
People can find me.
I'll make sure that I include all the links in the show notes so that people can find you and get in touch with you.
Thank you for the invitation, Laura. It's been a pleasure to be on your show.
Definitely. Thank you so much. Have a good night.
All right.
Hi, everybody. I hope you enjoyed that interview with Antoine. I know I did. You can find all of his social media handles and contact information in the show description and in the show notes on ChinaInfluencerMarketing.com. Before you go, I want to share a couple of my key takeaways from this episode. The first is make the KOL a fan of your brand. When Antoine said this, he meant start developing a relationship with the KOL long before you want to work with them. You can do this by sending them free products, inviting them to events, sharing news and product launches, and consulting with them. This will make them much more eager to work with you, and because they have had the time to become familiar with your brand's personality and use your products, their authentic interest and appreciation for your products will come through in their content. Next, a KOL is not an actor. What Antoine meant by this is that brands need to stop pushing influencers to repeat hokey brand messaging. You hired an influencer to share your brand with their audience, not an actor to shoot a commercial. Their audience comes to them for advice and opinions, and hearing your scripted messaging is going to be a huge turnoff. The last thing I want to talk about is how he said that brands are wasting money because they're not doing a good job of repurposing their content. Remember, if you're going to shoot a 2-hour live stream with an influencer, then you should also have a camera crew there filming and taking photos the entire time so that you can then repurpose the content of the live stream on many other platforms. He said it's crazy how many brands are not thinking about integrated marketing and how it is such an incredible waste of resources, and I couldn't agree more. So those are my key takeaways. What were your key takeaways? I'd love to hear what you found most interesting or useful, and you can leave me a comment on ChinaInfluencerMarketing.com or add me on LinkedIn or WeChat and message me there. Also, feel free to send me podcast guest recommendations or suggestions for specific topics or industries you'd like to hear covered on this podcast. I'm especially looking for some guests who work at brands and are willing to discuss how their brand has worked with Chinese influencers. So if you know of anyone, please send them my way. Again, if you liked this episode and know somebody else who might like it too, don't forget to share it with them. Thank you, and talk to you next week.